My name is Amy Dykstra. I worked with Paula Summerall when I was at Crown College, and then I went off to do a PhD at the University of Minnesota, and she came here, and she ended up contacting me when I was kind of working on my dissertation stage of my PhD and asking if I would want to do some adjuncting. And so I applied for an adjunct position that was open and kind of jumped at the chance to get a position here at Bethel. And when I interviewed with Brian Haidt, he asked me if I wanted a full-time role, and I said, well, sure. And so I started out as an instructor, and then they were able to convert that into a tenure track position, and so I've been here ever since. Well, what came to mind when I was thinking about that question first would be my committee roles. So I served on the Faculty Retreat Committee for a couple years and chaired that committee, and that gave me a chance to meet faculty and work with faculty from other departments and also interact with some administrators, particularly Deb Sullivan Traynor. And then I served on the Senate for a couple of years and served on the Senate Steering Committee, and then was asked to serve as vice president and past president. So I did that. And then most recently, I've been serving as department chair within the biology department. Besides teaching, I sometimes mentor students in research. I've also been an advisor for Sigma Zeta Club, which we've decided to let go dormant because there are plenty of science clubs on campus. And I'm now the advisor for the Creation Restoration Club. I would say the women who have impacted me the most are the other women in my department. And I would say especially Paula, and I am very grateful to Paula for kind of giving me the opportunity to come here. And then Teresa DeGolier and Patty Paulson were kind of the senior women in my department when I first started here. And so I learned a lot from them, and especially I would say Teresa, because I taught some of the same classes that she taught and worked with her. And then I was right in between Ellis Doan and Sarah Wise in my office situation for several years, and so I interacted with them quite a bit. We have a lot of really great women in our department. And then I met Kathy Nevins during my new faculty orientation and kind of hit it off with her, and I've always admired her. And she was always willing to provide me with support, especially when I was serving as Senate president. And she was always willing to listen. And then I worked quite a bit with Deb Sullivan Traynor and Deb Harless, more closely with Deb St. And so they were always good examples of women in leadership positions. And then more recently, Julie Finnern, and I've worked with her both in Senate and as department chair. So I've really appreciated my relationship with her. Well, I think primarily because they were in leadership. And so I could see that was possible at Bethel. And I just, that's a good question. I should have thought what characteristics I enjoyed. I just appreciated their collaborative approach. And I know with Deb Harless, I always felt like she understood, with both of them, I always felt like they understood the role of faculty and were kind of advocating for us with administration. And the same with Julie Finnern as well. I would say that I've always been very respected, and just as more faculty got to know me across the university, I've always been very respected by all the people that I've worked with. I would say I've only had a few very subtle indications that some men maybe thought I was less capable than a man would have been in a particular position, but there's never been anything overt, and it's been so subtle that it's possible that I've made it up. So actually, mostly I feel very supported, and I feel like Bethel has been a good place to work and to be in leadership. There's a majority women, and so our department has really changed over the years. When I came, it was the faculty, there were more men than women, and over the time that I've been here, we've lost more men than women. Teresa's the only woman who's retired, and several men have either chosen to leave or retired, and we've replaced them with women. So now we are definitely more women than men in the faculty. And that kind of matches the demographics in our students. But we probably have a higher ratio of men to women in the faculty than we do in the students. We still have a lot of guys as students. I would like to think that if they see examples of women faculty, that might encourage them to enroll as a biology major. I didn't have any female teachers, any female biology teachers when I was in college that I remember. One of my teachers of a physics class was a female, and I think everybody else was men. In graduate school, I had some women faculty. I just never let it stop me. I just always felt like I could compete with the men, and it's probably one of the reasons I went to the Air Force Academy. So my experience at Bethel as a woman at Bethel is similar to my experiences as a woman, say, at the University of Minnesota when I was working on my PhD. In other words, it felt like any role was open to me. And I would say maybe it was a little bit different when I was an undergrad, because things have just improved for women over the course of my life. So when I was in high school, Title IX was pretty new, and women's sports were new, and I was able to take advantage of playing, but it wasn't too many years before me that we didn't have women's basketball, girls basketball. We had a volleyball team, and we probably had track. But some doors were open for me that were never open for other women. Even going to the Air Force Academy, I was about the 6th class at the Air Force Academy that included women. So there were definitely women who blazed the trail for me. I didn't have to be the first in the class or on the first basketball team or anything like that. But I think that there was still kind of a glass ceiling for women when I was in high school and college, even in secular universities. But by the time I was at the U of M, I didn't really notice that at all. But then I would say at my various churches, there have been limitations on the roles that women can play. And so I have felt that it's more difficult for me to be valued for my contributions and for my leadership potential at churches than I feel at Bethel. And then the other barrier that I run into at church is that I'm a biologist, and so people are sometimes skeptical about whether I'm a true believer. I think they never say that, but their first questions to me are often having to do with whether climate change is real or whether I believe in evolution or things like that. So I kind of have that barrier. Yeah, I just think it gives women and girls a chance to participate in something that they enjoy. So when I was growing up as a little girl, I went to a little country school. There were 5 kids in my class, and that was by far the largest class at the school. And we would play softball or football every day at recess time and lunchtime. So I played with the boys a lot, and the other girls at the school did too. And I just was never interested in things that were like girl things to do. I was never really interested in cooking and sewing and home ec and that kind of thing. I just wanted to do what the boys could do. And so I think that Title IX was just really important because schools had to offer those opportunities for girls that they had previously only offered to boys. So I'm really glad that I got to be on the basketball team when I was in 8th grade, and really glad that I got to be on the cross country and basketball and track teams when I was in high school. And it opened up doors for me, and I competed as a runner at the Air Force Academy as well. And that actually was how I first met Christians, because I got involved in Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and that was an important thing that I was involved in that got me in contact with other Christians and helped me become a Christian myself. So yeah, I think just opportunities for women. And I did coach a little bit. I coached a little bit when I was teaching in Briggsdale, Colorado, and then in Gillette, Wyoming, primarily track, and coached a little bit of volleyball, a little bit of basketball, a little bit of track when I was at the Alliance Academy, and really enjoyed that. I guess I would talk a little bit about study abroad. I've had a chance to teach the study abroad class in Ecuador 3 or 4 times, and that's been a great way to connect with students, and it's a memorable thing that students have. I've made some of the most important connections with students through that. So that's been great. Well, I hope we just continue to encourage women to take on all kinds of roles at Bethel, and I hope we continue to encourage women to be in leadership roles and just do whatever they want to do at Bethel.